Hi boys and girls, today we are doing lesson 28. You're going to do number 1 and then you're going to do number 2, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So today's lesson we are going to make a line plot. So for number 1 it says, the chart to the right shows the distance 4th graders in Miss Smith's class were able to run before stopping for a rest. Create a line plot to display the data in the table. So I have my data points right here, and now I need to make my line plot. A line plot just involves one line, so you can make a really long line and then 2 arrows. Now I'm going to look at these data points first, and I notice that a lot of them are mixed numbers. And I see that I have a unit of an eighth. So I'm going to put my number line into eighths. And I'm going to look for the smallest distance. And the smallest distance is 5/8. And we know 4/8 is 1/2. So I'm going to start with my first data point as 1/2, or that's 4/8. Then I have 5/8. And I'm to mark the data point for Jenny, you put 1x above the 5/8, and I'm all set with Jenny. Now I'm going to keep focusing on the line plot. So I have 6/8, 7/8, and then 8/8 is 1. So now we have 1 and 1/8, 1 and 2/8, 1 and 3/8, 1 and 4/8, or 1 and 1/2, or 1 and 4/8. Then 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 2. We're going to keep going. 2 and 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 2 and 2 and 4/8, or 2 and 1/2, or 2 and 4/8. And then we have our last one right here as 5/8, or 2 and 5/8. Now that we made our line plot, now we need to put our data points in. So I'm going to start with Joe, and I see 1/2, and that's not into the equivalent fraction of eighths yet. So I'm going to take 1/8, and I have to find the fraction that it's equal to with an 8 on the bottom. So I'm going to figure out what's 2 times what equals 8. 2 times 4 equals 8. So if you multiply the bottom, you got to multiply the top. 1 times 4 is 4. So this Joe ran 2 and 4/8. I'm going to look on my line plot, and I'm going to 2, and then I'm going to 4/8, and I'm going to make an X. So Joe is now done. Now Ariana, 1 and 3/4. Again, this is a 4. We got to find a fraction that equals 2 with an 8 on the bottom. So 4 times what is going to get you 8? 4 times 2 equals 8 times 2. And that would be 3 times 2 is 6. So Ariana ran 1 and 6/8. Down to the number, to the line plot, I'm going to find my 1. And then I'm going to find my 6/8. So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8. Put in my X. Ariana, you are done. Now Bobby. Bobby ran 2 and 1/8. Again, go down to the line plot, and I found 2 and 1/8 is right next to it. So I put in my next X, and I'm going to check mark because I got that data point down. Now Morgan. 1 and 5/8. So again, I'm going to go down to the line plot. I find the 1, and now I go to the 5/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. X above and check it off. Now Jack. 2 and 5/8. Again, go down to the line plot, go to 2 and go to 5/8. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8. Jack is all done. Sasha is 2 1/4. Oh, I see a fourth. I gotta make it into an 8. Again, ask yourself, 4 times what equals 8? 4 times 2 is 8, so you have to times the top by 2. 1 times 2 is 2, and that equals 2 and 2/8. Again, we're now going to take it back to the line plot. We're going to go to 2, and you're going to go 2/8. So 1/8, 2/8. Put an X above there, and now Sasha's done. We're almost there, boys and girls. Okay, now we have Tyler. He is 2 2/4. That's a fourth. We got to make it into an 8. So we have to multiply it by 2 on the bottom and on the top. 2 times 2 is 4. So that's going to equals 2 4/8. We're going to go to the 2 on the line plot and go to the 4/8. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. If you have 2 data points, you're just going to put the next X right on top. So Tyler is done. We already did Jenny. That was at 5/8 over here. And now we do Ansem. Ansem is 2 2/8. So again, to the line plot, we go to 2. And now we go to the 2/8. 1/8, 2/8. We put the data point right on top. And the last one is Chandra. She has 2 4/8. So I already have it at the 8. So I'm going to go to the 2 and count to the 4/8. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. So now that I have stopped there, I am now going on to our questions. So it says solve each problem, and I'm going to go back and forth with the line plot and to the questions. So our first question is, who ran a mile farther than Jenny? So first I need to see what Jenny ran. Jenny ran, I'm going to look back at this data point, and Jenny ran 5/8. So 5/8. And who ran a mile? A mile is 1, so 5/8 plus 1. When we add a fraction and a whole number, we squish it together. So we have 1 and 5/8. So now I'm going to look at 1 and 5/8, and I'm going to go back to the chart. I'm going to say, who ran 1 and 5/8? So I'm looking, 1 and 5/8, 1 and 5/8. Oh, got it. That was Morgan. So my answer is Morgan. Okay, number 2B. Who ran a mile less than Jack? So who ran a mile less than Jack? So I'm going to go to Jack. So I'm back at the data. And here is Jack. Jack ran 2 5/8. So we're going to start with this, 2 5/8. And remember, less. So less means subtract by 1. When we subtract a mixed number and a whole number, we look at the 2 whole numbers first. So 2 minus 1 is 1. And then there is no fraction by 1, so we just have 5/8. So again, 1 and 5/8. Who ran that? I look back at the data table. I'm looking for 1 and 5/8. Oh, our friend Morgan again is the answer. Okay, for 2C, it says 2 students ran exactly 2 1/4. Identify the students who, how many miles did each student run? So first, to find that, we need to make 2 1/4 into an improper fraction. And how we do that is, remember, backward circle. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9 9/4. So we need to go back to the data points, and we need to find out who ran 2 1/4. So I'm going to look, and I don't see anyone so far. Oh, 2 1/4. So Sasha ran the first one, and let's see who else. Anson. So our answers for this is the students are Sasha and Anson, and how many quarter miles is 9/4. For 2D, what is the difference in miles between the longest and the shortest distance? So I'm going to look at the line plot over here, and the shortest distance is 5/8, and the longest is 2 5/8. And hopefully the difference is subtraction. So 2 5/8 minus 5/8. To subtract 2 minus, there is no whole number in 5/8, so it's really saying 2 minus 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. Then if we minus the fractions, 5/8 minus 5/8 is 0. So our answer is 2, and since we have to write it in miles, you can say 2 miles. Okay, we're halfway done. We are now number 2E. Compare the distances run by Ariana and Morgan using greater than, less than, or equal to. Again, got to go all the way over here. And now we're looking at Ariana. So Ariana ran 1 6/8. And then Morgan ran 1 5/8. From yesterday's lesson, remember, we compared the whole numbers first. 1 and 1 are the same, so I make my check mark. Now, I'm going to compare the fractions, 6/8 and 5/8. Using the butterfly strategy, 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 6 is 48. So we know that 6/8 is bigger. So our answer is that 1 6/8 is greater than 1 5/8. So Ariana actually ran further than Morgan. F. Miss Smith ran twice as far as Jenny. How far did Miss Smith run? Write her distance as a mixed number. Now we need to go back to the data point, and we need to see how far Jenny ran. Jenny ran 5/8, and now we have to times it by 2 because it says twice as. So we're going to times it by 2. Remember, when we multiply a fraction by a whole number, it's whole number over 1, and then tops times the tops, bottoms times the bottoms. 5 times 2 is 10. 8 times 1 is 8. Now they want us to write it as a mixed number. So number bond it, 8, 8, 2 8s. We have 1 and 2 8s. Or for some of my people who are ready to take it to the next level, 1 and 1/4. Okay, our last problem. Mr. Reynolds ran 1 3/10 miles. Use greater than, less than, or equal to compare the distance Mr. Reynolds ran to the distance that Mrs. Smith ran. Who ran farther? So again, we got to get the answer from F. So our answer from F was 1 2/8 or 1 1/4. They're both the same thing. So I'm going to use 1 2/8. I'm going to compare it to 1 3/10. So again, the first thing we need to do is look at the whole numbers. I have 1 and 1, so they're still equal. That means we got to take it to the next step and compare the fractions. So now we do 8 times 3 is 24. 10 times 2 is 20. So the bigger fraction is 3/10, making this statement. 1 2/8 is less than 1 3/10. So who ran farther? Mr. Reynolds. So if you would like to write a sentence, Mr. Reynolds ran farther than Miss Smith. So today's lesson involves making a line plot with the data points and then answering questions about the data and the line plot. So again, remember, lesson 28 for my packet people is lesson 28. And for my people on Learn and who have the Learn and Succeed books, please look at the pages on this post to see what the pages are for the problem set and for the homework. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you.